Hello, trumpet players. In this video, we're going to talk about what to do about stiff chops. So to begin with, we need to clarify that there's two kinds of stiff chops. We have stiff chops that come from the damage that you cause when you use too much pressure. And then you have stiff chops that come from really working out the muscles in your lifts. Those are two different things. There is some overlap in the way we approach those two problems. Actually, technically, one of them is not a problem. It's just a nuisance, right, that we have to put up with. In order to have growth, you have to go through periods of that kind of stiffness because that stiffness is a result of actually pushing yourself far enough to develop that muscle. The other kind of stiffness, the one from using too much pressure, is actually damage. And the way we want to approach that is to help the body heal. And so, yes, there is some overlap in how we approach this, but the purpose of the two is different. So let's talk about first the one with too much pressure. My approach to helping people in a preventative sense, and to help them not use too much pressure, is to use the One Range book. The concepts in the One Range book help fight this kind of problem. If you were to follow the One Range approach, you wouldn't have this kind of, we call it the Armstrong method, right? Pushing this way to get the notes out, okay? And so let's real quick, there's three parts of the One Range method that help prevent using too much pressure. The first one is the physical trumpet pyramid. Now, yes, I do have a book called The Physical Trumpet Pyramid where I talk about what that is, but you don't need to read the book. A lot of my friends call that the teacher's manual. You don't have to read the book to benefit from that pyramid. Now, the pyramid, what is it? It's the order that you do your exercises in. I've heard teachers in workshops and clinics and stuff like that say, it doesn't matter what order you do your exercises is. I'm saying that's not true. I'm saying it does matter. If you want the best benefit, you do the exercises in that order. We start with air exercise, we do lip buzz, we do mouthpiece buzz, we do long tones, we do scales, we do arpeggios, lip slurs, pedal tones, articulation studies, and double tongue and triple tongue. If you do your exercises in that order, and we have a video about the physical trumpet pyramid, so you can check that out too. I go into more detail. But that order helps you to achieve your most natural embouchure. It's like setting the reset button on every day. You reset your trumpet playing, reset and reset and reset. And by doing that daily reset, you get closer and closer and closer to what's most natural for you. That's how that system works, okay? The second thing in the One Range book that helps is talking about the 3 levels of rest. And we have a video for that too. Just look up Eddie Lewis, 3 levels of rest. Okay, and the 3 levels of rest are what help you build strength. And it's the strength that helps you not need to do this. The more strength you have, the less need you'll have to use too much pressure. Okay? The 3 levels of rest are the beat level. So when you play a phrase that has, so let's say you're doing the major scale, right? Then you should rest that long before you do something else. Now, let's say I'm going up in half steps. I usually sing and finger between. Just that way I know I have exactly the same amount of time and I'm working my brain while I'm resting my chops. Do, 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 do. Okay, so that's the beat level. Now there's a video for this. I shouldn't go into too much detail. I don't want to waste time. But we also have the hour-minute level, right? So if you practice for an hour, you should rest for an hour before you practice again that day. If you practice for a half hour, you should rest for a half hour before you practice again that day. And then there's the day level, which we're going to get into, which really overlaps with the third thing we're going to talk about that's covered in the one range, and that's range limiting. So the third level of rest is the day level. You shouldn't be working hard every day. You should only be working hard towards, building your chops 2 days a week. I almost did that. 2 days a week. And by doing that, you're letting your chops rest the other days. And that's how you build strength. Now, what do you do? None of us can afford to not practice on those days. So we limit the range on those days, and it's like taking a day off. So that's the third thing that the one range does to help you with the stiffness in your chops, if the stiffness is from too much pressure. There are other things you can do, and I listed them in the blog. Part of me says I shouldn't, but I want to be complete. There are things you can do if you have swelling from using too much pressure. You can, for example, put ice on them and then a hot pad and then ice and then a hot pad. You can take ibuprofen. The problem with that kind of stuff is I've seen people have this cycle where they do the damage, then they repair the damage with the ice and the heat and the ibuprofen, and the whole point is to repair it enough so they can go do it again. And your body can't take that for too long. And something is going to go wrong. So I guess the only reason I included it now in the video, but also in the blog, is because there are times when even someone who doesn't use too much pressure, you had like too many gigs in a row or whatever, and you ended up with swollen chops. Well, yes, you can do those things. You can take the ibuprofen. You can ice it and put the heat on there, and that'll help the swelling to go down. I'm just hesitant because I don't want to be part of the reason why someone gets caught up in that nasty, nasty cycle that will eventually lead to some serious, serious damage in your chops. Okay? So I just wanted to mention that. Now, what about muscle stiffness? The muscle stiffness, if your stiff chops are from muscle stiffness, it's because you did a good job. You went all the way to true fatigue. And that's what you want. You want to go to true fatigue without doing any damage, right? Which means you're putting all that on the lips. It's like, wow. It's like, I don't know, it's like the closest thing to athletics that we get to as trumpet players without, actually doing a sport. Okay? We're pushing our chops that far. We want to have that. So I think what happens is, and don't quote me on this because it's been so long since I took one of these classes, okay? But here's what I remember from my biology class in college, is that there's aerobic and anaerobic activity in the muscles. Aerobic is constantly refreshed. That fiber can pull and pull and pull and pull and pull over and over and over again for as long as the oxygen is still getting to the to the fiber, right? Oxygen through the blood. The blood is carrying the oxygen. It gets to the fiber. As long as that fiber is getting oxygen, it it can repeat its pull. The minute that the oxygen is gone, and we want that, by the way. It sounds terrible, right? The minute the oxygen is gone, the fiber switches to anaerobic, and it only gets one pull on that. It goes, so here's aerobic, aerobic, aerobic. It pulls, it pulls, it pulls. Now the oxygen is gone, and it goes anaerobic, and that's the last one. That fiber can't pull again now until it recharges. That's my word. I'm calling it recharging, okay? And the reason we want that is because the body has a built-in mechanism. When that happens, the body will build better pathways for the better veins and arteries to get more blood into that tissue where that fiber is. That's how this works. That's how, when you look at somebody who's got big muscles, that's not muscle that got big. That's mostly, so let's say these are the fibers, that's mostly veins and arteries growing between the fibers so that those fibers can get oxygen. I hope that makes sense, okay? So I'm of the opinion, this is not scientific what I'm saying now, so don't go there. This is just my interpretation, okay? I'm of the opinion that when we get stiff chops, it's because we reached that anaerobic stage. That's a good place to be because that's going to now build the chops even stronger. But we have the problem with the stiffness at this point, okay? And so that's why these two things are so terribly different. This, on the pressure side, that's damage that needs to be healed. On the muscular stiffness side, that stiffness is being caused by the proper functioning of your body doing what it's supposed to do under normal strenuous circumstances. That's not damage. You'll hear the weightlifters talk about building the muscle back up as if it's or repairing muscle and stuff like that. I think that gives a slightly misleading. It paints a slightly misleading picture. Those cells are not damaged. They've gone through this process where it's given up its lactic acid and it's gone into this anaerobic phase, and it just needs to be recharged. Okay? It's a normal part of how the muscles function. So the way we're going to approach this is very different. We want this to happen twice a week. We want this to happen twice a week. That's how important it is. I'll say it twice. All right? So, what are we going to do about it though? Because when we get stiff, we can't play low. We can't get a good sound. And our attacks go out the window. So you'll have like the fuzzy attacks. Right? So we have to do something. We can't just not play well. And so in my routines, the long tones have two kinds of exercises that help us recover from that. The first one is lip bends. Okay, lip bends is when you go down a half step, but without changing the fingering. So something like this, I'll play left-handed. So my new long tone exercises in the newer books from the Chops Express and then the newer ones after that all have, the exception is like the first two levels. They don't have lip bends. But the rest of them all have lip bends in the long tones. Extremely valuable for, let's say you had a really tough day the day before, your lips are a little stiff. This helps you get, and it doesn't really take the stiffness away. What it does is it makes the lips more supple, makes them more supple, even though there's stiffness. And yes, that's a contradiction. And I think the way we clarify the contradiction is it makes the skin more supple, while the lips, the muscles inside the lips are still struggling a little bit with that suppleness. Okay, so that's how I see it. And once again, that's not really what's happening. I don't know what's happening. You don't know what's happening. Okay, that's what it just seems like to me. Okay, is that when you do the lip bends, it really does a lot to help you control that stiffness so that you can actually play normal. Okay, then the other exercise is the pedal tones. And those are also in, from the third level up, those are also in the long tones, so that when you get to the bottom notes, it gets lower and lower, so that we're doing sort of like, this isn't one of the exercises, but something sort of like this. Now, for the pedal tones to work this way, so what we're looking at is pedal tones with what I call the easiest fingerings. Instead of doing it with first valve, like we do, so my books have pedal tones twice. You do pedal tones in the long tones, but then you do pedal tone studies later as a pedal tone study. And in the long tone, we use easiest fingerings for this purpose, to help massage the lips. In the blog, I say that the lip bend is sort of like stretching the lips. You know, athletes, when they get stiff, they'll do stretches, right? And massage. So yeah, the equivalent of a stretch for us would be a lip bend, in my opinion. Okay? So now the doing the pedal tone with the easiest fingering is, what it does is it really relaxes the lips and flushes that blood through. So you see the lips are like flapping around, and it makes it pumps the blood through there a little bit faster. And what you're doing when you do that is you're putting out all those byproducts, those toxic byproducts. You're flushing that out of the tissue and bringing in new nutrients and oxygen to recharge those fibers that went into anaerobic activity. Okay? So that's why the pedal tones help, is because it flushes blood through there. Okay? So that's what we're doing. Now, in extreme cases, I don't do much of this. I don't actually, I used to. And if I have students that have situations, we might talk about this. But you can actually, if you're having muscular stiffness, and it can work also a little bit for the other kind of stiffness too, you can massage your lips, basically thumb and finger, and just roll it around in there, especially on the parts where the mouthpiece hits, right? Do both lips. And I would normally put some kind of oil on my fingers, so that it slides around. That makes it a little bit more, because you know what, you can damage the skin too, and then the oil kind of helps with that. Okay, so you do that, and you can do all around, but you mainly want to get to the parts that are underneath the mouthpiece. Okay, then you do that. Then, when you've massaged it, you can now stretch. Now, don't pull too hard, right? You can damage, just like any other stretches, right? You can damage your lips the way you damage any other muscle. So don't be pulling too hard. Don't get overly eager with this. You know, one of the worst things you can do for your trumpet playing is to be so overly eager, overly passionate, that your head just goes out the window. You just don't think about what you're doing. Okay? People hurt themselves all the time. And they come to me for lessons because they've damaged so much. Anyway, so you can just pull just like that. And that can help flush that blood through. That's what we're trying to do when we do that stuff, is try to get more blood flowing through so that this recharging process can happen faster. Okay? Now that's only in extreme situations. All right? If you're only doing this twice a week, you really shouldn't need to do pedal tones and lip bends. Now, what would be the exception be? So there's a kind of musical life that I will never know, and I don't care to know, and I don't have authority on that subject. Well, there's more than one, but there's guys in New York that play in the pits for the theater stuff. Day after day after day, multiple shows a day, okay? And I don't know anything about how to maintain that kind of workload because I've never had any students do that, and I've never had to do that myself. I've always been able to take days off. So I don't know what it's like to have continual day after day after day after day after day kind of that kind of gigging life. All right, so I can't speak on that. If someone, the reason I'm saying that, someone who has a gig like that, I can tell you this, just in theory, you better have much stronger chops than what the gig calls for. If you have stronger the chops than what the gig calls for, then there's no problem, is there? Right? So I can tell you that most of the shows I've played, I'd probably be okay playing day after day after day if that was the only thing I was doing. If it wasn't the only thing I was doing, and I was also on the side doing like salsa gigs and stuff like that, I don't know how I would pull that off. Really. I just can't imagine how I would pull that off, because the damage that you do, like just how much strength you need. I shouldn't have said damage, but the 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 amount of oomph you need on a salsa gig takes 2 days sometimes to recharge from that. And I can't imagine if I had to fill those 2 days with 4 shows. Right? So anyway, seriously, I don't know anything about that life, but I could imagine if you had that life, you would need to do this massage stuff and all of that on a regular basis. Maybe even the icing and all that. But that's really something I don't know about. Okay? All right. I hope this answers any questions you have about how to manage stiff chops. I do have, we talked about the one range book. That's, you can get that at my website. We have the physical trumpet pyramid book. We've got the different daily routines books, the daily routines book, the Chops Express book, and then the different chops, the Chops Pro, the Chops Player, all those different from the Chops series. And all of those really work towards what we're talking about here. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask. Other than that, God bless you. We'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching this video. I wanted to spend just a minute to let you know that there's a better, more convenient, more organized way to access all of these videos. We have literally hundreds of videos here on YouTube, and quite frankly, it's a bit of a mess. So, to make it a little bit more organized and easier for you to access what you want to access, I created a separate page a separate area on my website. That's eddielewis.com. And if you go to eddielewis.com, click on the menu, click on videos. It will take you there. I have the videos categorized, and then within those categories, some of them, like the educational videos, you can click on it and go in there and look for the videos specifically that you're looking for. Okay? So go to eddielewis.com, EDDIELEWIS.com. Thank you very much.